What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Serious Angler Podcast, powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. I'm joined here with the captain, Mr. Andy Full, and as always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbrett. And folks, it's been a week since you've had an episode. We missed 2 shows in a row, so we thoroughly apologize. But
Dang, 2 in a row?
yeah, yeah, we didn't. So
I'm
Friday's
screwed over
episode
here.
was like technical difficulties. And then I'm going to tease Luke because we are supposed to have a week of champs. We were supposed to have Luke Palmer on Tuesday night. And now we got the heavy hitters champ, Mr. Alton Jones Jr., who's been on the show a couple times. And it's been too long. We spoke about it briefly offline. But it's good to get him back tonight. But we are supposed to have a week of champs. And his schedule was so crazy. But I'll tease Luke and just say that he was too hungover through Tuesday
Too
night.
hungover and hanging out on the beach all day, right? Like,
Yeah, that's what he was doing. He was sipping a pina colada, chilling on the beach. He was too cool for us now.
pick these up.
We've had Luke on the show like it seems like 6 times now, and so we're pretty tight with Luke, and we feel comfortable giving him some shit publicly about that. But the man, it's good to see him get a dub. Our guest today has gotten some good wins on the BPT as well as in his career, but like for Luke, that was like his first big win on like the national scale. So we'll get him on. He's going to be on next Tuesday night. So for folks that were upset we missed that show, we apologize, but we'll have him on next week. But today's show is going to be wicked cool because if folks that paid attention to heavy hitters, there was a staggering difference between first and second. And that's the one I really want to dive into. And it was actually quite comical watching the rest of the guys competing just doing their best and not being able to do anything about Alton just running away with heavy hitters. It was pretty cool. But before we get Alton on here, Andy, last show in the apartment here. We're moving. It'll be a new change of scenery. Yeah.
Aren't you excited?
I am thoroughly excited because there's no construction mariachi band while I'm working every day behind me, like 10 feet away. And
nobody's stomping on the roof above your head at like all hours of the night.
Yeah, it's like as soon as we start a podcast, there's like a marathon upstairs. People just running around doing figure eights just on purpose. But I am very excited to get the heck out of here. We have a studio being built at our new place. We're the only ones in there, like our own place to ourselves. It'll be cool. Man caves, even could be perfect. Like we can start doing some shows, in person, finally, which we've been trying to do for a long time. So it's going to be a cool change of scenery for folks that tune into every show. You guys will see that change coming up here in the next few weeks. But we'll talk about it a little bit in the outro. But we got Derb coming up this weekend. Second NYKBF Derb of the year. We got a whole deal going on at Cayuga, which is going to be some fireworks this weekend, being that it's early May on the Finger Lakes. Can't talk about it too much.
Yeah.
Our guest is going to be going there this year. And sorry, my cat just came in like a psychopath with a twist tie. But I'm very excited to watch the MLF Derby at Cayuga go down, and that's the extent we'll go with it because we don't want to get our guests in trouble here. So, and plus, we probably have people that are fishing this weekend that are listening. I don't want to give anything up because, I'm that way. But Andy, I think without further ado, let's bring our guest down for tonight, Mr. Alton Jones Jr.
What up, guys? Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be back. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on the show, dude. I know we tried to get you back on. I think it was in like October, and then it just all madness broke loose because I think I was traveling for like 3 weeks straight. But dude, congrats on the heavy hitters champ. I mean, carrying that title on from your pops must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, man, that was a wild week, dude. Like, I mean, I was listening to y'all's intro and talking about how it all unfolded, and I did not see it coming. Like, I mean, I was excited to fish Bussy Break. I was excited to, like, all tournament aside, I just wanted to have a shot at flipping a 12-pounder up out of a bush. Like, who doesn't want to? You don't go anywhere and have that opportunity, really. So to see it unfold that way, I'm sure I'll never experience that again in my professional career. I hope to win many more times, but to win in that fashion, especially we don't fish every fish counts in many tournaments anymore. Back into the 5-fish game. And while I would have won 5-fish too, it would have been a little bit more of a nail biter. There would have been one. There's so many big fish swimming around in there. There would have been 2 or 3 guys that were within one or two of those 8-pound bites and making it really, really, really interesting. But man, what a day.
Because, dude, I think you had, I think it was 19 fish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think second was 7, if I remember correctly.
it's 4 or 5 actually.
Oh, was it even lower than that?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, I think Dakota had 20,
It was 19 pounds, I think, was second.
22, but he had a 7-pounder, so it couldn't have been more than 5 fish at a 3-pound minimum. So,
Dude.
man, it was one of those days. I mean, everybody's had those days on the water where you just feel super locked in, super dialed, and I just felt comfortable from the get-go. Like most of these tournaments we fish, I feel like take years off my life with the stress, but that was one I think it might have added a few back on just because of how much fun it was.
Hell yeah, dude. Those are always the ones where it's like it's awesome for you as the angler, but scary for everyone else when you're like not stressing and you're just having fun. That is
Yeah.
probably the scariest thing for a competitor is because
Yeah.
all they're thinking about is you enjoying yourself and you're just not a worry in the world, just catching.
Some of it's kind of, I mean, I've been on the other side of it. So fun fact, that was the second largest margin of victory in Bass Pro Tour MLF history. The number one highest margin of victory was St. Clair, Michael Neal won by like 72 pounds over me. So I've received the other end of that kind of beating. I finished second in that event, but it's almost kind of relaxing. What you don't want is to lose by ounces. Those are the ones that keep you up at night, that haunt you forever. And I mean, I've done that several times since the BPT's been around. Once in particular in a cup event to Brent Naylor, and dude, still to this day, like I get mad at myself in the middle of the night thinking about that event. But you know, the ones where you get blown out, those are the ones you sleep easy at night.
Well, and especially because like with when you guys have the every fish counts over the limit deal, like it's not like when it's in 5 fish where it's like you didn't miss a fish that wouldn't have helped, where it's like any 2-pounder you missed, it's like that could have been the deal.
Yeah, it's really a different game. Every fish that bites your bait, within reason, you know, with the exception of a 12-incher, matters. And but at the same time, all of a sudden, like a 6-pounder doesn't matter quite as much, you know, because like it's okay, you can catch 2 3-pounders and you're right back there, you know, whereas in a 5-fish derby, dude, you can't replace a bite like that.
Yeah, and especially the way you were catching him on Bussy, just like
yeah,
dude. So before we go down that train of how you kind of dialed into that deal with this event, for folks who may not understand, heavy hitters, obviously you get 100 grand as the total winner, but each day it's 25 grand or not each day, it's each round is 25 grand for big bass, correct?
Yeah, so we've got elimination, knockout, and championship rounds. Elimination round is $25,000 for biggest bass, and like when you're looking at it, you're competing against like 15 guys, so your odds are pretty dang good. Knockout round, you're competing against 14 guys for $50,000 in big bass, and then the championship round, fishing is 10 dudes. It's $100,000 for big bass, and I mean, I know there's big bass tournaments that pay out things like that. I can remember Oliver and I winning one on Lake of the Ozarks, but you know, he's fishing against 800, 900, 1,000 boats.
Big Bass Tour, I think it's called.
Yeah. So as far as the odds and the ability to actually catch that big bass I don't think you can beat it. I've never heard of a payout like that.
I mean, dude, like Andy, for us, like our Tuesday nighters, there's maybe literally 10, 15 people for it. Like you got to picture that, but like you're winning 25 grand a night. Like,
yeah, there's a big difference between 140 and 25 grand. Sign me up for 25 grand.
Yeah, we're winning our gas money home.
I can tell you though, my very first big bass check of $140 and a Jack Potter on a Wednesday night, I was just as excited as about a 14-year-old kid as I was last year when I won 100 grand for a big bass at Palestine. So
without a doubt,
the feeling is all the same.
You're like, I mean, you're at that point in your life, $140, you think you're rich.
Oh, dude, that was like half of a new Xbox. I mean, that's how I saw it.
He wasn't even thinking about the next fishing rod in reel because he Yeah,
I was
Dad.
just stealing out of my dad's shop. I was more focused on Xbox.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Well, dude, so like for this event, were you like, obviously everyone wants to win the event because 100 grand, winning heavy hitters, it's a great trophy, great accolade, especially amongst, because it's only a specific amount of people. It's not the full trail that make this event. I think it's only a total of, what was it?
30 guys.
30
guys, yeah.
30 guys.
And a fun fact, I was the last man that qualified for that. Last man in by one.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Were you more anxious? Obviously, everyone wants to win it, but like, were you more anxious to try to get like one of the big bass awards, or were you just kind of just fishing and just hoping to keep racking them up?
Fishing and hoping to keep racking them up was definitely my go-to. There was, I had plans and strategies if I got to certain levels, or if I got so far down or so far up that I got comfortable. I had a Hinkle shad rigged up. I was ready to go sling a big bait around and keep that honest and try to swing for the fence. But I really never got put in that position this week. I like Caney Lake, which is where we started, fished the first rounds of competition. Dude, it's one of the best big bass factories that I've been to maybe ever. But dude, they're some of the smartest bass you'll ever encounter. Which my history on Caney, we fished it last year for the first time after going through Darbone. It's the only 0 I've ever had in my professional career. So we didn't have like the best track record. So my goal, survive Caney. That was my 100% goal, get to Bussy. Because I knew Bussy, was going to fish more my strength, a little dirtier water, flipping trees. I mean, I kind of cut my teeth down on Lake Falcon around big bass, heavy cover, dirty water. So it's just somewhere I was comfortable. I'm not saying I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to bust them if I get there, but I just knew that it would fit my wheelhouse a little more. So the whole focus was survive and advance at Caney.
Yeah. I watching the live stream, with each group, the guys like Andy Morgan and Fletcher, you heard them basically saying the same thing. They're like, just get to Bussy because everyone was having a relative tough time catching them on Caney. But why do you think that it was so hard to catch those fish?
So Louisiana is not really known for, one, its big bass fisheries, and two, Caney is it's kind of a diamond in a rough in the way it fishes. It's generally clear. It was off colored this week. I don't know why, but I mean, generally clear, has hydrilla, fishes like a reservoir, where most places in Louisiana fish like a swamp. And it's relatively flat, pretty featureless, incredibly susceptible to forward-facing sonar. And so, I mean, that's why you've seen guys like Ben Milliken going and fishing tournaments there all through the fall and winter, early spring. And, those fish there's really nowhere for them to hide. If they're not buried in that grass, I mean, then all of a sudden there's sand and brush piles. And you can tell that those fish see a lot of forward-facing sonar. I mean, more there than anywhere. I've seen fish that are tough to catch all over the country, but these fish was one of the first places where I've seen where you scan I point my live scope out there and I can tell they feel it. They can feel the ping at 60 feet, because all of a sudden you'll see a big old bass sitting up there way high up, maybe sitting on a piece of timber, and he's like, oh, see you later. I'm out of here.
Wow.
Or even a fish maybe 15 feet down, I throw and my bait hits the water, just splashes above him. He's gone. And that's 15 feet below the surface. So I think those fish are just incredibly pressured. It's only 4,000 acres. So when you put 30 guys out there, and they gave us 3 days of practice, I think it was a little bit of a mistake by the league to give us that much practice, because, dude, there was no stone left unturned. I mean, everybody found everything. And because fishing wasn't that great, not many guys went to Bussy. They were like, hey, I'll worry about that if I qualify for it, but I got to make sure I get through there. So, I mean, all of a sudden you've got a few schools offshore, a few brush piles that are getting found that have fish in them. You got 5 or 6 different guys that roll up, catch 1 or 2 just to confirm what they found. All of a sudden those fish get pretty smart pretty quick, and they're already pressured. So I think that's why fishing was so tough there. It's just fishing pressure, and then we're late spawn, post spawn. I ended up catching a large majority, almost all of my fish that mattered for me. I caught off the beds, which was my ticket to success this week. Like, not many guys were looking, one, because of the off-colored water, and two, it's been such a hot year. It's the last few days of April. We're in the South. Myself included, I'd kind of written off sight fishing, but I'm such an addict when it comes to sight fishing, and I love doing it so much that I kept it honest and kind of was able to ride it into a top 10 finish.
That I would have loved to, because for this event, you guys were all in the same boats. Did you get to practice in your own boat?
Yeah, so we practiced in our own boats, which I kind of made some mistakes there. Like, I'm running a 8616 Garmin, super dialed, dual screen. I've got live scope, perspective mode, everything you can imagine. And then I actually had a pretty good first day of practice, scoping individual big fish. I just suspended totally random. And then about lunchtime, I'm like, man, this is pretty good. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm going to be running a single 9-inch screen that I'm running mapping and forward-facing sonar on. So it's like looking at this cell phone right here. For
Here's this HDS 7. Good luck.
Yeah. And so while more power to you if you can catch them that way, it made it a lot more difficult.
Yeah. I would have loved to have just enjoyed the circus of everyone trying to translate their waypoints over, but also just to see each person's screen of who had the same dots.
Oh, dude, I started on a roadbed the first morning of practice, and luckily I was boat number 1, which was pretty important for me. Out of 15 boats, there was 5 of us out of 15 that started on the same roadbed, trying to make the same cast. It was me, KVD, Dakota Eber, Ryan Salzman, and Zach Burge. Wait, is that 6? Oh, yeah, 6. So yeah, there you go. Over a third of the field started on one roadbed, and so that kind of shows you how exposed and really easy to find these fish were.
It has to be. So like when you see basically everyone's got the same stuff, everyone's looking at the same thing, like that sort of deal. How do you approach day one? Like, how do you go about deciding what you're going to do to try to differentiate yourself? Or are you just going to play the numbers?
So being boat 1 helped my decision out a lot there, because I hate fishing in a crowd. And it's not that I don't mind fishing in a crowd. I hate being the second or third guy to show up in the crowd. Nobody wants to be that guy, but when we're all starting there, it's part of the game. I'm probably a little too passive in that sense, but when I'm the first guy there, it just makes it a lot easier. Yeah, y'all can come in and fish, but I'm here, doing my deal. And so I played the numbers game early, right? And just to tell you, there was probably 1,000 bass sitting on this roadbed.
Oh my God!
And there was like 6 of them caught in 3 hours the first morning. That's how tough they were to catch. And I was just lucky to catch 4 of them. And so I played the numbers game early, and then I went shallow, because there was not near as many fish shallow, but there was not near as much competition for those fish. And so every morning I started out deep in 20 feet of water, and then very quickly pulled that trolling motor up, raised the trolling motor up, and went as shallow as I could go.
That's awesome. And went for your spawners, like you're saying.
For my spawners, yeah. So I was skipping a wacky rig while I looked, which I caught 1 or 2 this week doing that. But man, my eyes were just glued to the water, looking for any type of movement. And it was hard to see. Like, I had to have perfect conditions, which the first day of competition we did, which I was leading after the first day of my group. And then I knew I was going to struggle, because I looked at the radar and the forecast for the second day. We had storms, wind, rain. I caught 1 scoreable bass on that offshore school to start the morning, and I zeroed the rest of the day. So, had the weather worked out differently, then you fast forward to the knockout round, we get perfect. The best sight fishing conditions you could ask for: bluebird, slick calm. And I was able to end up sixth in my group. But had we had bad weather that day, well, I would imagine we wouldn't be having this podcast right now, because I wouldn't have made the final day.
I got to give props to Major League Fishing this year, because the drone shots have been absolutely fire. Dude,
Man,
they've been
I'm
so
glad
good.
you think that because, dude, I'm pretty easy going, but dude, that drone drives me up the wall.
For you guys, it probably
It's
sucks, but like
having
for us
steel
watching, it's great.
inside my ear.
Just
And
humming.
I'm sure he knows it, but dude, there's been a couple times like on that offshore school for one on day 2, he's like got that drone like 5 foot over the water out there, and they come up schooling under his drone, and I'm like, get out of here, you know. And so, you know, I would
Dude, I'd be
assume
pissed.
obviously they didn't mind it too much. They didn't mind schooling under his drone, but in my head, I'm like, get out of here, get out of your shoe. But man, I've seen some of the shots they've gotten from like Murray and stuff. Those fish on beds, it's pretty incredible.
I could not imagine if you like didn't realize the drone was there. They came up school and you just fired, hit the drone,
Dude,
just like how
it will happen someday, and I guarantee you when it happens, it won't be 100% by accident.
yeah.
It's gonna be like, hey,
You're
you're
saying
in the
the guy-
way. There's gonna be that one guy that's like, hey man, you're in the way. He's gonna sling a big old something out there.
All right, if you had to nominate, well, not nominate, but like label one angler on the BPT that'd be the first one to fire a jig at a drone, who do you think the first one would?
I mean, probably like Jeff Crete. I
Really,
could see
Jeff
him
Crete?
being like, man, forget y'all. You know, I mean, y'all messing up my fishing. I don't care. The one thing about Jeff, like, he's kind of like the Ricky Bobby. He rolls the the me deal. He doesn't have a huge list of sponsors. He's just out there doing what he loves to do. And so he's like, hey man, there's no reprimands here. He'd be like, and Crete's what guy I wouldn't mess with. If he's got something to say, he's gonna say it, and he's not gonna be bashful about it. So I could see it being Crete.
I could see just Burge pulling out his 12 gauge out of his locker from duck hunting and just
Yeah,
blowing the thing out of the
I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
I can see it. But hey, it'd make great TV.
Hey,
Burned down.
Yeah, Andy Morgan might do it with a bow and arrow. You never know. There's about 10 of the 80 that it would not surprise me.
Could you imagine if you did it like on the invitationals or the opens or that level where it's like guys that definitely don't give as much of a damn as like you guys? Like,
It'd be a co-angler slinging out of the back of the boat with a Carolina rig catching you.
yeah. Oh Lord. So dude, kind of start taking us through, excuse me, like what clicked at Bussy Break to get you on this pattern that literally no one else was able to figure out, that you ran away with?
Yeah. So day 2 practice, I rolled over to Bussy Break. It was like an hour and 45-minute drive from where we're staying in Caney. So I knew we didn't take off till, I guess Lions Inn was at 8 a.m. And, at that point the sun's been up for an hour and a half. So like your morning bite's dwindling or dead. But I was so excited to go fish there. I was like, forget this. I'm going to be there at daylight. So I rolled over there, got there at daylight, and noticed a shad spawn going on pretty. It wasn't a super violent one, but, every 10 minutes you go past a bush that have them, and you see a random fish blow up here and there. So it's pretty clear that they were keying in on shad. And early that morning, I had quite a few. I say quite a few. I had 4 or 5 bites, flipping a white billow shad. Flipping a white bait when there's a shad spawn going on, or even I do it again in the fall. Something, learn for some of those guys like in Oklahoma, your Jason Christie's and all them when I used to work with them back in the Pradco era. And I've kind of picked it up and made it my own. We made a white bellow shad almost just for that. And I noticed when I was getting those bites, like, dude, you'd either flip it in the bush and the bush would shake and like a frog explosion would happen. So the fish are sitting here, or you'd yo-yo it up in the top of the thickest part of the bush, and kind of the same thing. There'd be a big boil. It's a real violent thing. So I almost was fishing these bushes like a grass mat. You always see guys yo-yo it real high up under the mat. And did that early. And so I was like, oh man, this is cool. Hey, if we get some cloud cover, might get some bites doing this. It's a good way to start the day. Fast forward, 3 or 4 hours go by. I like everybody else, and I mentioned this when we were offline, but that day on Bussy, there was like 150 locals out there. And I mean, it was just a round robin. I mean, who wouldn't want to go there on a good Saturday and have a chance at flipping a state record out of a bush? And
yeah,
So I'm fishing around, not having hardly any success. I want to say I went 3+ hours without a bite. And then I think I broke off, or maybe just for giggles, I picked up that white one again, flipped it right in the middle of a big old green bush, and the bush shakes like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I was like, I wonder if that was a fluke. I flipped it in front of an aggressive fish. And so I was like, I'm gonna stick this in my hand. And over the next hour or so, I shook off 6 or 7 more bass. I take that back. I didn't shake them off. I stuck them all because it's Bussy Break, and I didn't know if I was going to get there. But I caught 6 or 7 more bass, 3 to 7 pounds. Great big ones in my book. So that was like, and dude, this was slick, calm bluebird day, the last day you'd ever think to flip around white, and that just kind of locked me in. Like, hey, if it's this good when it's sunny, what's it going to be when it's cloudy? And they're really keyed in on bait fish, and the deal is not too many people flip white. I'd say it's a very select few, and as much pressure as that place gets, it's just showing them something different, showing them something they've never seen before. They've seen every jig and craw and Cinco in the book, and so just showing them something a little different. And so that was kind of what hinted me on to like what was going down at Bussy Break. But I had a great day. I fished a half day there, probably had a dozen, maybe 15 bites, but it wasn't. There were a lot of dead periods through there, and it wasn't just easy to get a bite, dude. Bussy's the kind of place where you could go spend a whole day and not catch one, 100%. Like, it's a very, very difficult place to fish. But I just knew I wanted a chance there. Was able to get my chance. And if you have any more questions, let me know. But I'll just keep rolling into the first tournament day.
I got one quick one.
Okay, hit me with it.
So flipping white. I mean, like, I know there's a very sneaky deal up here in the north that we do with white. And for the pure fact that I didn't find it out, but my buddy told me, I'm going to refrain from going through that.
All right.
But like, when you're doing that, are you only, for the most part, getting bit like when the first flip as a reaction on the way down, or are you getting bit as you're like hopping it up too?
Typically, I mean, so at Bussy, I did have some fish, like I'd flip it all the way in, it'd go to the bottom, I'd shake it a couple times, and they would thump it. But I'm pretty convinced those were fish that were high in the water column that followed it down. I don't think those are fish that are lurking on the bottom. But almost all of your bites, when you're flipping a white bait, are going to be reaction in some way, shape, or form. So I typically, anytime I'm fishing white, I'm flipping a heavy weight. Like I was throwing a 5/16 this week, 5/0 flipping hook, straight braid, and they'd either hit it right when it went in, and then I give it a couple shakes at the bottom of the bush, which is 6-7 feet down there, and then I kind of not stroke it hard, but just yo-yo it all the way to the surface. And when I get it to the surface, like I get to that top limb, and I give it 2 or 3 good pulls. And if there was more of the bush to flip, I might reel the bait over a couple limbs and drop it back in another hole. But really fished it like a grass mat. Like, that's the best way I can say. And almost all of your bites were in the top like 2 feet for sure, but a lot of them were even in the top 6 inches of the bush.
And you were throwing that bellows gill, right?
Bellows shad. So
bellows shad.
The bellows shad has come to life. That's my signature bait. So when I got with G-Crack right here, I fell in love. Like, the first bait I ever threw theirs was the bellows gill. I had no idea what G-Crack was. Buddy of mine, Garrick Dixon, from up in y'all's area of the world, showed me the bellows gill. I quickly fell in love with it as a sight fishing bait. Just that bluegill profile. It moves really well with little shaking of the rod. And, just really like that bait. Now, fast forward, I was with Pradco at the time. Our partnership ended, and I was able to link up with Kazuki Kitajima, who's the president of G-Crack USA, and just spend a day on the water with him. And like, dude, I was completely green when it came to like JDM. Outside of like a mega bass jerkbait, dude, I didn't know anything about the JDM culture. And he showed me a lot of their other baits, and we just kind of, hey, I don't have a bait sponsor right now. Let's see, if y'all want to work something out, let's work something out. And so they were gracious enough to work something out. And as that grew, I noticed a lot of their baits that are very, very technique specific, very situational. When it's on, there's nothing better, but they're not super versatile. And so while I love the bellows gill, it's a little bulky, a little big for most applications that we have here in the U.S., especially tournament wise. So we came up with the bellows shad. It's just literally is me taking a bellows gill that's that fat, taking scissors and cutting it down to a slimmer body profile. Came up with the bellows shad, and that's my signature bait. And so that's how that bait came around. I know that wasn't exactly your question, but that's the backstory on that bait. Yeah, and
that's pretty cool.
It's one of those baits. It looks ridiculous, dude. It looks crazy. But when you see it in the water and see like the unique shimmy that it has, it's super lifelike, dude. It looks just like a shad. You know, when you look at a shad, it doesn't have a giant boot tail that spins or a giant crawl that flaps. It's a tight wiggle and a shimmy. And as I move this thing through the water, especially with that heavy weight, dude, it looks just like a bait fish. And so that was what was the ticket for me this week.
Yeah, if folks listening or watching have not seen the action, at least of like a bellows gill, I'm assuming the bellows shad is probably a little bit even crazier.
Yeah, it's a little bit more exaggerated because it's a slimmer body.
Right.
And yeah, dude, it's
that tail is like crazy.
Yeah, but it's real tight. I mean, it's fairly subtle. It's not moving a ton of water, but as far as the visual action of it, and that's kind of what I've noticed about like all JDM tactics. It's the subtleties. You know, they're not throwing things with a rage tail. You know, like all their stuff. It's the little bitty movements that these baits do. And I think as these fish become more pressured with forward facing sonar, like I told you earlier, I had no idea about anything JDM. And now if you saw my bill from all these Japanese tackle stores, you would be like, this guy's got a problem, because I'm so far down that rabbit hole right now.
I blame Andy because I'm in kind of the same boat. Not like I'm holding off on some resistance of going down the whole JDM route, but because of Andy, I've gone down a little bit.
Hey, if you ever need the websites, there's some that are out there that look sketchy, but they're legit. At least I haven't had my credit card info stolen yet. You're paying in yen, but all my tackle has shown up. So if you ever need a plug, I got you.
I will be texting you after this.
Okay, sounds good.
You just screwed me over my next month's paycheck, but like,
good luck.
I think Andy's ears perked up though too when you said some of those sites.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The only thing I really ever look for now in the JDM market is like OSP DRs and EXDRs, the crankbait.
Yeah.
Because there's just like a special place for those with me with smallmouth.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever they come in stock in places that I know to buy them, I'm like, I gotta buy like 2 of every color that I think is good.
I just got a shipment of those in myself for St. Clair, so I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
I think the OSP cannon has been let loose. Everyone knows about it.
Dude, hardly anything's ever in stock with them. So,
no,
man, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool though to be able to just take a little bit of JDM and Americanize it a little bit. Really, is all we did was dumb it down, and not quite so specialized and specific. And that's what we've got in the bellows shad.
So you're not throwing 4-pound fluoro with a cube with some hair going out of it yet?
No, but I do have some cubes though. I've got some. I do have some cubes. Yeah, but no, I'm not there yet. But I promise you, I'm gonna have one rigged up at a point when we go up north.
Dude,
just to say, like I spent $400 on cubes. I gotta catch a bass on it, right?
I feel like I've tried some weird stuff when it comes to fishing, but I don't know if I'd ever throw a cube.
You know where I would throw.
I don't know if I could do it.
It's like kind of spawner, like a spawning smallmouth. I feel like they would just.
Well, yeah, a spawning smallmouth will eat anything you put in
it.
their
They will eat a gummy worm too. So
yeah.
They'll eat a dang hook. You don't even need a bait. You just have a hook that's a little bit shiny, and they'll eat it.
Or even like shallow smallies, the ones that are just cruising. I feel like might be something good for them.
What's funny is like we're kind of going down that JDM rabbit hole, but like Kazuki is really kind of keeps me in the know, like of what's going down in Japan, what's winning on Lake Biwa. Like these are the things to look out for. And it took me a while to like realize, dude, because everything he'd send me, he'd be like, he sent me that cube like a year ago. And he was like, you might want to check these out. And I'm like, whatever, sure.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you got Fujita on the elites doing the damage. And, we've got a bait called the Emo Kamushi, which it's in like the same family as the cover scat, like the turd bait, but it's got the tentacles like that. And he showed it to me and I'm like, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I noticed, I'm drawing a blank. He caught him on Chickamauga on the cover scat. I'm drawing a blank here. A BPT guy. Used to fish FLW. I'm drawing the biggest blank in my. He's won like a bajillion AOYs in FLW.
Oh my gosh. It's not coming to me either. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I'll come up. Give me 20 minutes. I'll blur his name out. He caught him on the cover scat at Chickamauga a couple years ago offshore, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to try this thing out. All of a sudden, now I'm in love with the Emo Kamushi, dude. I'm throwing it everywhere we go. I caught him last year at Cayuga on it, and just kind of like starting to understand those tactics. And so that's kind of what's gotten me so far down this rabbit hole is like the fear of missing out, because I have missed out on so much so far.
Trying to look it up now. Now I can't. It's personal, so I have to go find it. I'm torn.
Shinfukai.
No.
Shinfukai. Like
How do you forget that?
The biggest name that's ever come from Japan,
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, Bailey, though. Have you thrown the poop bait yet? The cover
I have
scat?
not thrown the poo-poo yet.
Hey,
I gotta
I'm
find my
telling you,
bag of
Northern
it.
Largemouth go bonkers for that stuff. Like that Emo Kamushi, I smoked him on it last year at Cayuga. And I was fishing. Yeah, sorry. I know.
No, you're good. You're good. I don't want to. I'm so tempted to talk about it, and I'm resisting.
Yeah, so you can't tell me nothing, but I can tell you everything. But like
Right.
fishing areas of community hole stuff out there at Cayuga where they've seen a bajillion drop shots, a bunch of DT20s, and by the end of the week you can't get a bite, but all of a sudden you pick up 20-pound fluorocarbon and this Emo Kamushi and start throwing that thing around, and dude, the 4-pounders just swim off with it. So it's really cool. Yet again, it's a slow moving bait. It's a big bait, but it's the movement and the action of it is subtle.
So now that we're down to the poo-poo train, how are you rigging it? And then what's the setup too for folks that are looking into buying some poop?
So that's been a little bit of a mystery to me, dude. I've struggled dialing that in. It's a lot of plastic. I know a lot of guys throw it on an EWG. It's not a light line tactic. It's a 17-pound, 20-pound fluorocarbon line type deal, even in clear water. And I fish it on like a 7.6, which is long for me. Like I'm a 7-foot to 7.3 type guy on most tactics, just because I got to pick up a ton of line. You throw it weightless, you're throwing it in 20 feet of water, your fluorocarbon's sinking, and you just naturally are going to have a lot of slack in that line. So I've had issues with hookup ratios throwing on like a 5-aught EWG, which is what most people, from my understanding, in Japan do. But I kind of found if you're not throwing it in like a brush pile or super, super heavy grass, I found like a cheating way to do it. If you just throw it on like a 4 or 5-aught straight and shake flipping hook and super glue it up there, just like an exposed hook tube, you will catch every bass that sniffs it. And I started throwing it on 50-pound braid to like a semi-long 20-pound leader. And that way you don't have issues with the stretch. And I mean, dude, you can throw it on a 7-footer, and when you get a bite, you just start whining. I mean, and you catch every one of them. I caught them with Mille Lacs on it too. So the smallmouth go crazy. Now, these are not perch eating smallmouth. These are crawfish eating smallmouth.
Yeah.
But dude, if they're feeding on big crawfish, it's pretty wild, dude. I fished boulders for 20 minutes with a drop shot, watching 4 or 5 smallmouth do circles around it. And I throw that up there and I watch them come up and greet it off the boulder, and a 5-pounder swims off with it. So it's pretty wild.
Good grief.
Yeah,
You know what would be really funny is if you took them out of the package and you just kept them in a Dude Wipes package. That would be funny.
Yeah.
Could you imagine though? You're sitting there like MLF, they're taking photos of you as you're like taking a bait out, and it's like you're opening up doodles.
I know. That's the ultimate discreet letting out
Catch them
people
on all
know.
boop.
Yeah, I've actually never caught a bass on a cover scat. Full disclosure, but that emo kamushi, it's the same family.
Right.
It's the same bait, same tactic, same way you fish it.
So do you think that's like Yamamoto's USA tactic with the Yamatanuki was to go after like the cover scat and
100%. And more power to them. I mean, heck, like how many companies have knocked off a Cinco in their own way? So
Every single one.
Every single one. And I mean, we're working on doing one ourselves. So but yeah, it's that same family, cover scat family. That's why I call it the cover scat families, because it's all the Cinco family. You know what I mean?
It's all in the
how
fam.
How fast do these baits fall? I'm just curious. Like, what is like the rate of fall?
About a foot a second. Faster than like a weightless Cinco, but slower than like a Nico rig with a 30-second ounce weight.
See, now I want to tie one on tomorrow on my guide trip when I'm out in like 25 foot of water for smallies and see if one will eat it. I like a flipping setup.
If depending on the lake, if they're crawfish eaters and not, a goby eater would probably eat it too. But as long as they're not feeding up on perch and stuff or alewives and stuff like that, you'll get a bite on it.
Yeah, it's Lake Erie out of Buffalo. They're most of them are feeding down, but
yeah,
in the last 2 years we've had a lot of shad eaters, like gizzard shads and alewives show up, and everything's feeding up right now. Okay, so it's like
interesting.
Yeah,
you'll get one to look at it. It will. It gets some intrigue.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I kind of want to try it tomorrow. I think I'm going to throw one of.
Do you have some, Andy?
Yeah, I have some Tanukis.
Of course you do. Well, you have to let me know the results.
Right
when you throw it, you let it sink to the bottom and you twitch it pretty hard, like
that. I can get
that.
And
so
a line slack or like.
Yeah, like on slack, like twitch, like almost like you twitch a fluke up off the bottom or something like that, fairly hard. And at least the kamushi and the cover scat, they almost walk the dog in place. They're going to do that. They're not going to dart super far, but they're gonna just walk the dog in place. It's really unique, but that's how they fish it. It's not a slow drag, so you're kind of almost popping. You'll pop the rod tip up 5 or 6 times and then just let it fall, and then all of a sudden you're gonna pop it up and you got a little something on there.
I wonder if these bait designers like make a bait because they think it's gonna make one direction, or they make a bait because they just like, let's see what this shape will do, and then it like oh, we got lucky.
It's a little bit of both. It's got to be a little bit of both, because you can't tell me that they went into making that being like, this is gonna have this type of action, and this is how they're gonna eat them.
Like, I just
you tell me that's gonna walk side to side on the bottom, and I'm telling you, you're crazy.
That's a pretty color. I actually really like that color.
Yeah, this is heavy brown purple laminate, and it looks good. I think a smallmouth will eat that.
I dig it.
I mean, the poop that time of year, they'll eat.
Y'all shouldn't have we shouldn't have even started talking about Japanese tackle. We went from like halfway through the Bussy Break story to 20 minutes of talking about food.
We haven't even gotten to the good stuff.
We just went.
Yeah.
All right, let's cut the tangent with a
digress.
Year and
digress.
You were before we went on this 20 minutes ago. You were about to get into. I believe it was day one, or it was like how you started getting on that trend at Bussy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so day one at Bussy rolls around, and I start in what I kind of feel like is my best big fish area. So I had 3 areas found. I had this first one was a deep area of like really pretty willows, very obvious, and I knew that this was going to get the most pressure of them all. One, because like, hey, we've all watched the show. This is right where the tournament all went down last time when they were at Bussy. And 2, it's just some of the prettiest water in the lake. So I started there. And, Bussy's 2,000 acres. So we've got a 30-minute ride around. We get there, and I mean, heck, I've got 26 minutes before line's in. And so I'm sitting there seeing a shad spawn, and me and Randy Howell basically start boat to boat. He's like, hey, which way do you want to go? I was like, I'll go this way, you go that way. And so we're start side by side, and we're going to butt off and go this way. There's a shad spawn going way back in the woods. I can see some really big fish blowing up, fish you'll never be able to get to. But like it's slick calm. So we've got a front. It's supposed to be a nasty weather day. We've got a little front moving in, some weather. But at this point, it's like slick calm, prefrontal, like dream fishing day. And these willows are about 6-7 feet. Like my second flip. So I flip to this bush. Randy flips to that bush, right? I set the hook. Here comes a 2-something, and they've got to be 3 pounds to score. So I'm like, dadgummit. Randy flips to his bush and catches a 7-1, and I'm like, oh. It was like, I mean, literally 5 feet to the left of where I just flipped. And I'm like,
the wrong side.
I'm like, man, I should have said I was going left, not right, you know. But no, it was all good. We worked great together. But that was like getting a little jab in the side there. But went on fishing, caught a couple more. Then again, like we talked earlier about, I'm sitting high in those bushes. One of them was a 613, and dude, when I flipped in this one bush, like, dude, it was like you'd have thought she was eating a whopper plopper. Like, it's in the middle of a thick bush, but like I flip in there and like, whoosh, and like my heart just sinks. And usually when that happens, a lot of times they're so violent they'll miss it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please have it. And I reel down, and it's just like going the other way. And I was able to winch that fish out of the bush. But so I caught 4 bass in the first 4 scoreable bass in the first period for 18 something. And but dude, the wind, that front blew through during that first period, and the wind started shaking those willows real bad side to side. And my experience at Falcon and Amistad, the fish do not like that at all. You know, especially when they like to position real buried and high in the willow. Like if they're sitting on the base, it's okay because the base isn't moving much. But when they like to sit high, that's like a big no-no. Is wind in the tree shaking side to side. I think it's a sensory overload. I mean, they don't like it hitting them. I mean, they're a predatory fish. They want to know everything that's going on around them. And when that's happening, they can't do that. So I saw as that wind kicked up to the second half of the first period that it was going to get really, really tough. So from there, I think I spent 10, 15 minutes in the second period there, and I pulled the plug. I was like, I got one stretch of cypress trees that I got bit on in practice, and it was maybe a 200-yard stretch. And now the stretch of cypress trees is 2 miles long, but where I got bit was 200 yards. And the wind was blowing right in on it. It was nice. And I get to like the first tree where I had a bite. And so I pull up, and the wind's crashing into these cypress trees. Obviously, they're rock solid. So kind of the wind is your friend there. I was like, I wonder if they'll bite a spinnerbait. Dude, the first tree where I got a bite in practice, I slow roll a spinnerbait bite and catch a 3.5 pounder. I'm like, okay, you know, is that a luck? What's one bite? Is it luck? Is it a pattern? I ended up catching 1 or 2 more non-scorables. Then all of a sudden I slow roll it by a tree. I have one train wreck it. It comes up, jumps, comes off. It's like a 6+ pounder. And I'm like, okay. And at this point I'm like, you don't know what the day's going to hold. Right. Yeah. So that fish was kind of crushing. And so I'm kind of coming to the end of my 200-yard stretch, you know, and like I had 5-6 bites in this 200 yards. It was legit. Lost a big one, caught 2 scorables, caught 2 or 3 non-scorables. And so I get to the end of my 200-yard stretch, which I fished the rest of it in practice, never had a bite. But I was like, yeah, that was good right back there. I was like, I'm going to fish another 5 minutes. If I don't get a bite, we're out, because I had my third area that I talked about. About 3 minutes into that, I catch a 4-pounder. I'm like, okay, well, now let's fish another 10 minutes. And about 3 minutes into that, I catch a 7-pounder. And I'm like, we may not leave here the rest of the day. And it wasn't the entire stretch of trees, but it was about half of that. I said it's a 2-mile stretch. It's probably about a mile of it. That was just phenomenal. I mean, they had to be 3 pounders to score. I caught 19 scorables, and for every scoreable I caught, I probably caught 2 non-scorables, and those they're not dinks. Like they're like 212s, like good chunky bass that knock the rod out of your hands when they hit it. And so one of the things I was doing, you know, we talked about the bellow shad. I was putting that as a spinnerbait trailer as well, and that's something. When we designed the bait, we wanted it to be versatile. I didn't design it as a as a spinnerbait trailer. I designed it as a flipping bait and a chatterbait trailer. But for the last like year and a half, I've been throwing it on a spinnerbait, especially in the wintertime as a big Colorado, to add bulk. So like when you're fishing a spinnerbait, you know, people talk about weight of the spinnerbait, blade combos, trailer hooks, but not many people talk about the bulk of the trailer that you're throwing on that bait. And I was throwing a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait. And the bulk of that trailer, it's a big spinnerbait trailer. If you've seen the pictures of my rig, like on Bass Blaster or something, and it allowed me to reel that spinnerbait super, super slow and still keep it high. Like it's not the best. It's not the best trailer if you're trying to bottom crawl a spinnerbait because that bulk's going to make the bait rise. But if you're trying to keep it up in the water column and give a big profile, looking for a big bite, dude, it is straight money. I mean, I caught him on it. I caught a 7.7 on it at Kissimmee, using it the exact same way. So that shows it's not just a one-off. You know, I've caught big ones on it at Grand Lake. I've caught big ones on it at Lake Fork. And it's just like in certain situations, if you're looking for a different picture for those fish, it's really special. And all my bites, like these cypress trees are 4+ foot deep. All my bites were coming like that far within the surface. And with that bit, you know, in a 1/2 ounce bait, dude, I mean, I could reel it like this and I could still see those blades turning. And I mean, I'd probably say 30% of my bites were visual. Like I'd see them blow up, boil on it. And I mean, dude, it was just
spinnerbait's gone.
Like, yeah, dude, it was the best spinnerbait bite by far I've ever experienced.
That's freaking sick. I'd imagine it's imitating a gizzard, right? For Bussy gizzard shad.
Yeah, I didn't see any gizzards, but the water's fairly dirty, and when you've got that dirtier water, you can get away with a little bit bigger profile than like their natural forage. And another thing, like when it comes to like trailer size, when it comes to either on a buzzbait or a spinnerbait, the bigger the trailer I can get away with, I actually feel like it improves my hookup ratio. Because when those fish come up, they've got something to slap at, bite at, other than just like nipping at the blades.
Right.
I feel like my hookup percentage and my hookup ratio to land ratio is higher. Like growing up, I can remember throwing a buzzbait and it was a fish losing son of a gun, but I'm just throwing a skirt on it. All of a sudden, guys start throwing a horny toad on it or a Z-craw or whatever you want to throw on it. And dude, I hardly ever miss a fish on a buzzbait anymore because they have that target when they come up. And you know, when a bass flushes something, I think that bulk gives it a draw rather than just having a wire and a hook there. You've got something when that bass flushes to get sucked into his mouth. And I think it's kind of the same thing with a spinnerbait.
That's pretty sick. Andy, you got to be nerding out on that little.
I'm just taking it all in.
Dude,
like,
that's sick.
I hear buzzbait and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for June in the post spawn to throw a buzzbait.
Yeah, it's. I think every angler though, because a spinnerbait is so widely known, is probably can almost like manifest the feeling of what you went through of like. Yeah. You're imagining slow rolling, watching the spinnerbait go by a tree, and then
a big cypress. Just see the blades or Colorado blades thumping, just like
I felt like James Houston or Bill Dance there for a little bit, 100%.
But the only time you can feel like Bill Dance though is if you fell out of your seat, if you're like leaning on something and broke 4 rods and the trolling flies off all at the same time. So you can't really say you felt like Bill Dance, right?
But, I feel like the spinnerbait's a little bit of a lost art, though. I mean, dude, everybody throws a chatterbait, a jackhammer, now a swim bait, a swim jig, and the spinnerbait kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit. And dude, I've gotten back to where I think I prefer a spinnerbait over a bladed jig in a lot of scenarios. And I just while they see them a lot, they don't see them as much as other baits.
Especially around wood. Like I know there's a lot of people that still throw chatterbaits and such around wood, but like
crazy.
Why would you ever? I mean, dude, so look at Caddo Lake. It's another Louisiana lake. It's all cypress. A lot of guys throw jackhammers around that wood, and they smoke them to their credit. But like I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'd rather just beat the crap out of these trees with a spinnerbait, bump it into them, and I don't know. I feel like it makes more sense to me. But
I mean, efficient. It's so much more efficient with a spinnerbait. Honestly, dude, I stay hung with a chatterbait around wood.
Yeah, same.
And so, but with a spinnerbait, dude, if you'd see where some of the places I can put that bait and not get hung up, and I mean, it's a place where you'd be scared to flip a jig, but I'm pitching a spinnerbait in there and kind of yo-yoing it around,
Yeah.
So that's really, really versatile.
Yeah, and especially when you can learn how to skip that spinnerbait because it's a little bit more challenging than the rest. Then it's like,
so you keyed in on something there too. Like that big trailer was a big key for me being able to skip that bait. I couldn't put that bait. I couldn't put that bait anywhere I put it if I don't have a trailer at all.
Platform just to slide across the water.
Yeah. If anybody watched, like I was able to put my bait in some really tight places, and that trailer's a big part of it.
Yeah, that's something I think folks don't. They see people rig it certain ways, but don't think people really look into why their trailers are rigged the way they do from like a horizontal versus a vertical standpoint. I mean, people talk about water column, like you were talking about earlier, the bigger plastic keeps it higher in the column. Chat spawn deal, like that makes sense. But some folks don't talk about how like they will purposely put like a horizontal trailer on a chatterbait because it has a tendency to roll over wood a little bit easier. Whereas it's vertical, it can roll and snag. I don't think people talk about that very much.
No, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of little nuances for guys that want to go the next level and kind of tinker with their baits. It gets really situational, but for those certain situations, it can pay off big time.
Yeah, huge. But dude, for real, congrats on the heavy hitters dub. I mean, the way you caught him was freaking sick. I had a blast watching it. I was having almost more fun watching you catch him. Like I'm sitting here, I'm supposed to be working on this side. So if my boss is listening, I apologize. But like I'm sitting here like giggling like a little kid watching you catch him. Like this.
I love my forward facing sonar and all that, but man, it was nice to get away from it for a week and do it old school.
Sign me up for a spinnerbait bite any day of the week.
Yeah. Hey, dude, there's a Motel 6 not far from Bussy. Go get you some.
It's a long drive, especially with the little one.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Congrats again on the Munchkin. Adding one member to the family.
Thank you. Yeah, we just finished a feed right before I hopped on here. I'm gonna scarf down a meal. He's got another feed here in about 45 minutes, and I'm gonna catch me some much needed sleep.
I bet. Well, dude, for folks that are listening and watching, we'll have all of your socials, including your YouTube channel, which has been freaking killer so far this year.
Thank you, dude.
Especially, I've seen Tyler's been putting some camera work behind it. Super cool. Tyler's a wizard with that dang thing.
Dude, he's so good. The best move I ever did was bringing him on board and getting him to produce my content for me.
So that's like a solid thing then.
Yeah. So anything you see produced for me, outside of a few photos and stuff like that, but any video content you see from me, Tyler's the wizard behind the camera and the editing.
See, okay, that's cool to know because I like keeping up with it and watching because I follow up with Tyler, I follow up with you, and it's like I know Tyler was like helping out with MLF and some folks. I'm like, oh, it's just because he's at tournaments, but like the fact that you got him filming for you, that's
yeah. Cool. So the last couple of years, he's had 5 to 7 guys, and he's kind of running around, shooting short form content for
Strike King stuff.
Shooting stuff for other companies. But after my success last year, I was like, hey, let's do this for real.
How many beans you need?
Right, exactly. Like I need you. And so we were able to work something out. And so he's just shooting content for me this year. And that's been it's a big investment, but it's one of the best things I've done, I think, to this point in my career.
Heck yeah, dude. I got a quick question that before we let you go. I got 2 more. One on the YouTube side, because I think a crazy trend, and maybe the past, if not year, maybe in the past 2-3 years, is the amount of tournament professionals that have gotten into the YouTube side and doing it well. Is there like a collaboration of thoughts or guys helping each other on tour in regards to like operating YouTube and how to maneuver that, or is it kind of just guys just going out and filming, doing their thing?
Not really. It's pretty much guys going out and filming, doing their thing. Now this year for sure, like there was a huge increase in the number of guys running their own cameramen. having their own content creators. But outside you got like the Ding Squad with Wheeler and MDJ and DC and Adrian and their crew.
Yeah.
They're kind of they're the bass fishing squad on the tournament side. But outside of that, it's just kind of guys doing their own thing. I think it's important moving forward that we do collaborate more because, dude, YouTube's such a hard space to break into. I mean, I'm super happy with the content that's being rolled out, but man, I'm like, come on, this is like 100,000 view content, not 1,000 view content, Yeah. So I think it's important going forward that as tournament anglers, we do band together and I don't know what that looks like, or collaborate in some ways, work together and trying to grow this thing for sure. But for right now, it's just kind of every man for himself.
Well, yeah, I mean, collaborations doesn't hurt anybody. It only helps everyone.
Yeah, it's good for everyone.
Yeah. Dude, the personal cameraman, you brought that up. Like, it's almost becoming like golfers and caddies at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, it sure is. I'm sure next year you're going to see another influx of it. BP Brandon Pollock kind of started this whole deal like 2017, and I wish I could go back and slap myself and be like, take out a small business loan and get you a cameraman. Couldn't imagine what kind of a place we'd be at right now if we'd done that. But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, there's definitely a few pioneers, if you will.
Yeah,
and it's been pretty cool. But dude, for real, thank you so much for joining here. It's been fun catching up.
Yeah.
Andy, you got anything for him before we let him go?
If you see anything sneaky JDM, please let us know.
You got my phone number, my email, so hit me up. And likewise, I'm always looking for that next sneaky thing.
Yeah. We're gonna start a group chat here.
Yeah.
Any new turd baits coming to the market?
Yeah. I'll let you know when the next good turd comes out.
That's good. Well, dude, appreciate it as always, and good luck coming up. You guys are heading north here soon, aren't you?
Gunnersville, then we swing north. Yeah,
so
we've got our early northern swing this year, headed to Cayuga in June. So can't wait. I'm a little nervous about Gunnersville, but I'm ready to get up north.
Dude, that's the one really cool thing about your guys' format is you don't have to wait till bass season starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard just prepare myself for what we're going to experience at Cayuga, that it's going to be really special. So everybody's just chomping at the bit to get up there. Yeah. Just that way. But we'll talk all you want to talk after that event. How does that sound?
Works for me.
Sounds good, yeah.
God, it's such a tease, man.
Yeah, man. Dude, thank you guys for having me on. It's fun as always outside of the show, just talking fishing. It's a good time.
Heck yeah, man. We'll be talking to you real soon.
All right. See you guys.
Safe travels.
See you later. Oh, dude. It's so hard. It's so hard to okay. He's out of the queue now. He's out of the queue now because if it was live, I'd be a little bit more lax on what we're saying. But because you guys know Friday shows are not live, but he's out of the queue now, so we're good. But dude, they're gonna break a record at that tournament.
Oh, it's gonna be silly. It keeps staying cold too, which is just gonna prolong things. And like I had on Erie, right? Like I had smallmouth set up in areas that I graphed on Sunday when I had guide clients out, and I'm like, these fish, as soon as it gets warm, are going to spawn. I graphed over them today; they were gone. I'm like, okay, they slid back out. Like they were there, ready to go. The water temp on Sunday was like 51. Today it was 46.2. So it's dropped 4 degrees, and all the big fish that we had deep have turned into 4-pounders. I mean, if you want to come pound on 4-pounders, it is an absolute riot in my boat right now. I need to figure out where the big ones went because they disappeared on me. So that is my goal tomorrow, is trying to find big fish as people are listening to this. Yeah. In the last 2 days on the lake, I think my clients and I have caught like 104-pound fish. Like it's just.
If people are trying to go out, do you got any upcoming dates free?
Ooh, I actually just had a Sunday open. I think it's May 21st. Had to shuffle a few days around, and that is the only May date that I have available. And then June, I have the 27th, 28th, and 30th. So there's 4 days that I have available for guide trips if people want to go catch some big smallmouth or largemouth. Yeah.
Big old bass.
Big old bass.
Heck yeah. Well, big thanks to Alton. Again, it's always good to get him on the show. We'll be trying to get him on for sure. And we have to now after KU go. After they come up, we got to now. And see how many fish he caught on the poo bait.
All of them.
Every single.
Like, I'm so tempted. Like, I'm sitting here looking at I have a jig rod here next to me, and I'm like, do I just put this on my jig rod and go out to Erie with 15-pound test and count to 45 for it to get to the bottom?
Just put it on a free rig.
Oh yeah, I should do that too. It's not a bad idea.
That'd be super cool. That makes for some cool serious angler content. We got him on the poo.
I honestly thought about like putting it on a Ned rig just so it gets down.
I feel like it's way too big for that.
It is. I would have to put it on like a 5/0 Ned rig hook.
You're going to put it on like a freaking 1/2-ounce 5/0 swim bait hook, like a hollow belly hook.
I just thought, I don't know how this would work.
Hover juggle.
I'm like, what if I hover stroll a poo?
You gotta do it. You gotta like, just to say you did it. You gotta do it.
I have those quartz tackle jig heads in my boat, and I'm like, what if I hover stroll a poo bait for smallmouth?
You gotta do it. You have to now.
I'm so
at least even if you don't catch anything.
Yeah, no, I really want to. You know how hard these things are to get right now? Like, I'm like, do I really want to waste it trying to hover stroll some poo? I might have to try it tomorrow. It's just one. He says it's one poo.
It's just one poo. That's not a full poo. It's just a one poo. Guys, if you can tell, we're very childish.
Like throwing it way out there, just whack, whack, whack. You're like letting it fall on the hover stroll. Like, oh god, could be fun.
How you catching him? We're whacking the poo.
We're whacking him a poo. Like I'm thinking about, like, how's a smallmouth gonna get this poo in his mouth? Like,
you're so stroking a tube. Stroking the
poo. I'm stroking some poo.
Oh, I'm so glad the show's back. It's been a long week, guys.
Repeat that 5 times. Stroking some poo. Stroking some poo.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, you're making me die.
Not bad. Poo jokes. They're always a good time.
I hope people are laughing at this. Otherwise, they probably closed out the show. They probably turned it off.
They're like, oh god.
Yeah. Oh man. Great show tonight. I got a derb this weekend. Looking forward to that. We'll be putting it out on the Be the Fish channel. Andy's been posting some more smallmouth vids, more fishing vids on the Full Fishing channel. If you guys are not subscribed, I highly encourage you to. And anything else that's coming up, dude? We got Luke Palmer Tuesday Night Live. Oh, Lake Fantasy Fishing Monday Night Live.
Monday night. Forgot about that. Man, it's a busy week next week. And we have an explosive topwater episode on the lab on Saturday morning with Josh Bertrand. So that'll be a good one to tune in on. So,
yeah. And then one last reminder for folks. Well, I shouldn't say last because I'm going to keep reminding you because it's part of my job. Serious Angler Apparel. SeriousAnglerNetwork.com if you guys want to get yourself some t-shirts. We're trying to get some sun hoodies from Blackfish on there. A bunch of our hats. We still have a bunch of hats in regards to shipping them out. We're going to be giving some more away here soon. You know, hoodies, all that jazz. If you guys want some, SeriousAnglerNetwork.com, as well as go to SeriousAnglerNetwork.com if you want to join our newsletter. So if you want a preview every Sunday night of what the week's going to look like in regards to shows and some of like the more popular news that happen in the fishing industry, we send that out every Sunday night to your email. So if you want to do that, get signed up or just DM us your email, whichever is easier for you guys. But yeah, get signed up. Anything else, Andy?
At this moment, I have nothing.
Cool.
We will see you all Monday.
Yeah. Peace out, folks. Appreciate y'all. Bye.